subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Hi everyone, my name is Anita and I welcome you all on Import of Media. Today I'm going to be with Professor Ashish Sinha. Professor Sinha, welcome to Import of Media. I'm so glad that you accepted my request.
A pleasure to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Sir, I was going through your LinkedIn profile. It was something which is very interesting and intriguing. I read that you are an entrepreneur and you sold your two companies. That is something which is very interesting for me, at least. I want to know your entrepreneurial journey, and then we will jump onto other aspects of your persona and what do you do at the University of Queensland and as a research fellow at ISB. First, tell me about your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. So I would say, just taking a step back, that I am in some ways an accidental academic and also an accidental entrepreneur. And the reason why I say that was when I finished my engineering, and I'm from Punjab Engineering College. When I graduated, I worked for Crompton Greaves for a year or so, but realized that my passion was not engineering, it was something else. And so I was very fortunate to get a scholarship at University of Alberta. And pretty much, they told me, come and do your PhD, and you can decide what field or what area. And I didn't know much about business. In those days, commerce, as what it was called, was largely accounting. And so literally I did an eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and my finger rested on marketing. And marketing was, a very sexy subject. Everyone was talking about marketing in those days, brand equity, all those sort of things. So it seemed really interesting, and off I went and did a PhD. Been a really great education I got from University of Alberta. I must say, I was trained as a methodologist, as a Bayesian statistician, as a methodologist. And, that education was fantastic in a number of different ways. And then, as most of us would do, do a sort of an academic job. But then this opportunity came up, and that was to head up the Analytics Insights group at Information Resources Incorporated. And this, and which what I've always called, so I was the vice president there for a couple of years. I've often called it as the most interesting experience. And the reason why it was it was of Analytics Insights group at a time when analytics was not as big as what it is now, right? I'm talking about 20 years back or so. But it was a great experience because it was a consulting role, so to say. I got the opportunity to meet a lot of very senior folks like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and one of the things that amazed me was that there were so many problems that managers wanted solutions to that academics didn't have a clue about. Right, that these problems exist in the real world because, and I guess it's become a little bit better, but not as good as what it should be. But still, it's a lot better than where it was at that particular point in time. And so these managers wanted solutions or responses to these questions, and unfortunately, we didn't have any. And so that got me really interested in this whole. And then my calling was an academic. I always wanted to be an academic. And I returned to academia. And since then, what I've been trying to do is to bridge the gap between practice and theory, practice and academia. And that's when this whole entrepreneurial bug caught me, because it was, how could I do research where I was solving problems that was important to managers or someone, right? Stakeholder managers, in those days, managers more so. And many of these were analytics solutions. So I would develop these models and became a consultant to consultant.
Okay.
Right. So there was a firm, there was a firm that I was helping out, a large innovative Aztec, which was in Sydney. My ex-employer's IRI as well. So I leased out a lot of my products to Aztec, Synovate Aztec. And I was probably one of the pioneers when it comes to analytics products in this part of the world, in Australia and New Zealand. And so all my research, not only I was fortunate to get them published in some very good journals, some of the top ranked journals, but they were always trying to solve a problem. And then from them, there was always a company that would be interested in that particular solution, right? And that's how, over a period of time, I would work with these guys to commercialize the whole solution. And that's how this, became a kind of, you can call it a two-way street, that it was research, but it was research that was applied in the sense that we were solving some important problem, which always interested some company somewhere. And therefore, it turned out to be, so to say, some sort of a company that got started and that finally got acquired by these firms. So sorry, it was a long-winded answer to a short question, but I just wanted to provide you a little bit of background and then try and explain how did I get there.
I can see a lot in terms of an entrepreneur, a researcher, or an academician. So it's like an amalgamation of all, and then you're solving problems for the industry, and then industry people are ready to work with you, so that ultimately this is the essence of research. So whatever we do should go back to the society, and society should take some advantage of what we are doing here. So I can now say that this was the process of the making of Professor Ashish Sinha. Very
Yes,
interesting. Okay. So as I'm following your work, I recently, few days ago, I saw your post on your paper which you published in 2013, and I realized that it is your best paper, which is very close to your heart. Hearty congratulations on completing 10 years of that paper. uh, this paper solved a lot around research, academia, industry. Tell us more about this paper and how to proceed further to identify industry problems and then solving through management research or managerial, whatever you're doing, yeah, in terms of marketing research or management research.
Sure. So I think, what one of the things, as I mentioned at IRI, I realized that it's important for academics to be engaged with the community. And community could be, you can define it in a number of different ways, whether it's managers, whether it's society, there's different stakeholders. Because what happens a lot in academia, and particularly, those of us who went through the traditional way of identifying research problems, is that we read the literature, imbibe that, learn from it, and then identify, hey, there is something that's not been done, and let's do it, right? And there's nothing as such wrong with it, apart from the fact that you are solving a problem that there might be a gap in the literature, but might not be of value to someone. So another way to kind of think about research is, well, it's about solving problems. It's about solving problems that is important to someone. In my case, it was always managers, those some of the examples that I've provided you with. And that problem, in this case, was that they wanted a solution for assortment and pricing, that a solution that could do both and both together, and understand, but also have some idea of what the competition looks like. So the idea being that whenever you have a set of products, if you add or delete them, they sort of are competing with all the other products. So if they're perfect substitutes, then that's fine. You can delete it, you can take it out, because, whatever is the market share of that particular product, it'll go back to the rest of the assortment. But if it's very unique, then you don't want to delete it, because that's the only one that's very idiosyncratic. So, and this was a problem that manager is facing, and you're looking at assortments of some product categories like carbonated beverages that's got like 3,000 different products, or it could be salty snacks, again, a very large category, wine, another one, very large category, right? So you could have these very complex problems, and companies were looking for solution for it. So I'm not going to go into the details, technical details of that, but the important part was I knew that this was a problem that existed, and that I knew from my days at IRI and interacting with a lot of these very senior, CMOs and so on and so forth, who would always identify this to be a big problem, a big issue or challenge that they had, and they didn't know what to do about. So the idea here is the most important. It's engagement-led research. It's an engagement-led research that you're trying to solve a problem that, if the solution will create some value for them. If you are able to do that, and if you are able to, do it rigorously, no one could promise you that your work will get published in the best journal, but there's a higher likelihood of that happening.
Absolutely.
You know what? In the last couple of years, it seems like academia has really warmed up to it. Before it was, oh my God, you want to solve an industry problem? Gosh, all right, there's no theory that this. Now they sort of understand that the solution has to be of value to someone. And so that to me was the important ingredient of that particular paper, right? How you understanding the problem that is important to managers, to these companies, bringing it in, trying to solve it as rigorously as possible, publishing it in a good journal like Marketing Science. Unfortunate enough that it went on to win the award, but then a company called IRI kind of picked that up and said, well, if this is a solution and it's a problem or a challenge that we face, can we not engage with this person because it's been published by a really good journal and an award, so that we can then build this solution for this problem, right? A very different approach to research, a very different approach to this whole engagement-led research.
I think a lot of us are missing on this aspect. We are just finding out problems based on what literature is already being published, gaps from that literature, and we build on our arguments on those scenarios, those gaps. But then, when we look into, I think primarily because you have worked in the industry already, and you know that after meeting with so many people, there are challenges which people are experiencing, these organizations and these companies are experiencing, that helped you a lot in designing your research. That's what I can take from your.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So moving to the next part of this interaction, because nowadays this particular word, ChatGPT, the upcoming new technology, which is now swiping away Google. I hear it every now and then. So tell me about what do you think about ChatGPT and its impact on higher education? You are actively talking about it, but I want to know from you that how is it going to impact, how ChatGPT is going to impact the management research?
Sure. So it's a really interesting question you ask, and as you know, everyone's talking about it, right? And everyone's talking about ChatGPT and its impact on this and that and the other, and that there are many others who are kind of poking holes and trying to see its weaknesses, and so to me, I think it's the last three letters that are the most important in ChatGPT. It's the generative, pre-trained, transformer, right? So that's what GPT stands for. So when you think of generative AI, rather than just understanding patterns, but being able to then generate new content, we're just seeing the beginning of that. This is going to get better, right? And so generating new content, but then the equivalent of deepfakes, where they can combine it to see whether how novel that content is, which is something that is already happening. It's the cutting edge of research there. That means it's not only, that it's generating something, but it also can test out whether it is novel or not. There's a huge opportunity there, right? The second one is about pre-trained. The idea being that many of us don't have the ability or the computational power or the skill set to train one of these AI machines. So it's called foundation AI. That means you train these things and you let people have access to it. So now what they're doing is what I call as the next stage of the diffusion of artificial intelligence, which is they're making things accessible, affordable, and they're democratizing consumption. It was not something that was possible before. And finally is the method itself, which is transformer, which is an exceptionally powerful technique, right? So these three, you can see the number of opportunities, the amount of opportunity that you would have in the future. And we have just begun to scratch the surface at this point. And where it'll have an impact in virtually every area, right? And regardless of which one you might think. Higher education in particular will be impacted, as I think I've written that it's about certification, university certification, because the certification is very important. What it says when the testimony or the degree says that a particular student has certain set of skills, and they went through the system, their system, a university system, to learn that. When, because of ChatGPT, who knows who's generating those answers? The university no longer has the ability to certify that. That creates a huge problem. So the universities that will do volume-based universities, so that means you've got a lot of students, and they're sitting in a class, 500 odd students, 1,000 students. These sort of problems will emerge. If you've got smaller classes, more interaction, right, then it'll be a very different scenario.
So I sense that what about novelty of research, which we are doing based on our ideas? So if we try to get some kind of ideas from ChatGPT, so is it going to impact? That's a question which I'm having, and I want to know it from you. So what about novelty and originality of research, which is always a question in front of a scholar, which starts from ideas, and then ideas should be innovative and original and unique.
Yeah. So that's a really great question, honestly speaking. But because if you look at the novelty of ideas, and a lot of research done, there was one paper that got recently published in Nature, that the novelty of ideas being published over the last 50 years has declined rapidly, right? So that means, and that's where, it's the citation versus the novelty of the idea. Because if what you are trying to do is to maximize your citation, then it doesn't matter whether your idea is novel or not. So again, going back to this whole thing about gap in the literature, if you can train AI or chat equivalent of a transformer or ChatGPT, which you can, on going through all the material that's been published in a particular discipline, and then identifying, areas where there's gap, then ChatGPT possibly can do as good, if not a better job, because it can process vast amounts of information that human beings might not be able to, right? But if you're talking about, like what we said, engagement-led research, you go out, you observe, you see that these are the problems that society is facing, no one's even mentioning or has not been mentioned in the literature, right? ChatGPT can't do anything about that because it doesn't have that information, doesn't have that knowledge. Maybe, 20 years, 30 years down the road, might be vision, might be able to help, maybe, or vision AI might be able to help you, but certainly not at this point. So I think it'll force us. ChatGPT, I'm not scared. I think it's really great because it'll force us to become more novel than what we are. It'll force us to be better institutions. It'll force us to be better teachers, right? So that's when I'm really excited about ChatGPT. I'm not scared of it. I think it's really great that a revolution like this is happening because, that'll force us to be better scholars.
Yeah, actually, it is changing our mindsets as well. Like, okay, we have to get this thing done. ChatGPT is available, so I think we are also getting dependent on ChatGPT, and
Yeah.
I hope that that dependence should reduce because ultimately, I believe that novelty will definitely go down if we are more and more dependent on such
ChatGPT.
kind of AI, or it can be destructive as well. So, anyways, the thing next I want to ask you, which you have already talked about, it is on a constant debate which a scholar has in mind, which is around citations do not make you a top scholar, but ideas do. So, this debate. So how should we focus on, and what should we focus on, citations or ideas? Because if we are focused more on ideas, the constant performance pressure which we are receiving from our institutions, and one of the parameters of performance is citations as well. So, what is your take on it? Because you always talk about that ideas matter a lot than citations. So, tell me, why do you say so?
So as such, I'm not against citations. Given that I'm part of the academic circles and I'm an academic, what citations really mean is the scholarly impact that a paper or an idea has had in the field, which there is nothing wrong about it. Now, having said that, what has happened, even a couple of years back, the number of journals on which citations were based were very few, say 1,000 journals, right? That has exploded to 35,000 journals. So that means in order for you to have a high citation, you could get cited by some of the worst journals, some journals that are even predatory, that are lowly ranked, and it will count no different from publishing in Nature or Science. So a journal that is, right at the low end of the quality spectrum, I'm saying maybe 34,000 ranked versus a journal like Nature, which will be right up there, there's no distinction between those two. Whether it is that journal citing or it's Nature citing. Now, that does not make sense. That really does not make sense, because when we say that citation is a measure of quality and the impact on the discipline, what if your work was picked by Nature and you got 10 cites by Nature versus getting 100 cites by the most lowly ranked journal? So at this point, the raw count of citation does not control for the quality of the source. And so you see these large numbers, and that's happened in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's because of rankings, and I've said that multiple times. It really doesn't reflect quality anymore. Probably it used to, but it really doesn't reflect quality anymore. So that's the issue that I have with citation, not citation per se, but what they have become now. And in some ways, it's an end in itself, rather than, what is it that you are producing? So if you are doing a lit review and, and there's a gap, and then your research fills that gap, but it's creating value for no one, but it's getting cited for whatever reason, that is considered to be good research. And that's where the problem is.
So my next question to you is, who is going to decide that this idea is good enough idea and the other idea is not that great? Who decides that?
So yeah, I mean, that's a great point. If you look at any form of creativity, right? When people come up with new work, and whether it's in art, whether it is anything else, painting, whatever, it might be music, it's always the field that decides. The field decides whether, something is good or bad, right? Rightly or wrongly. The other one would be breaks. So if you're looking at citations, as an example, if you're looking at citation, if there is a novel idea, because its reliance on all the earlier ideas is very minimal, you will see that most people will cite that work, but nothing before that, right? That's a very simple way of figuring out whether this is a novel construct or not. The whole mRNA, as an example of it, right? mRNA is something which is so novel and different that it didn't exist before. So there's a break because there's nothing to go back and compare it to. Okay, this is a new construct, this is a very novel idea. So there are different ways, both quantitative as well as, so to say, qualitatively, that you can decide. Now, the problem then is that everyone will say, and they're right about it, the ones who decide are the ones who have a seat at the table, right? Many don't. So then it becomes a problem of whether you are inclusive or not, whether you're diverse or not. So then you get all these sort of questions about that, right? Yeah. And so I can see the value in citations, but then if you can control for the quality of source, then and you will see that the responses are very different, because then the ones that are lowly source, if the source is from a lowly ranked journal, then it kind of, there's a filter. There's some kind of a filter there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have this debate, like my idea is very good, but what if I don't get cited by other people? So I think you made a very valid point, that how to identify that my idea is good enough idea to pursue further. Thank you for this insightful point. Actually, it was needed from somebody who has published so well and who is working on different ideas. It was needed. Thank you so much. So a lot of serious conversations we have done. Now this is time to relax and to understand who is Professor Sinha as a person. So I'm going to ask you some couple of questions which are in a form of a rapid fire. Are you ready?
Yes, as ready as I can be.
Okay. So my first question to you is that what is your early morning ritual or practice?
I always try and meditate for 5 to 10 minutes before I go to work or whatever I might do. So I always spend 5 to 10 minutes to meditate, and that kind of helps me a lot.
Which car do you drive?
I drive a Porsche, Porsche.
Okay.
Cayenne.
Okay. What's your latest purchase that helps you increase your productivity?
Bought a new iPhone 14. I can't say that it was better than iPhone 11 that I had, but certainly there are features that help me, even before.
So which one is close to your, close to you, like gardening or baking? It's a general question because in Australia, baking is a concept so I'm asking you this question, gardening or baking?
I would say gardening, because I like to be outdoors.
Okay, so mountains or sea?
Gosh, that's a hard one. I like both of them. I climbed the Kilimanjaro, 5 years back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nearly got to the top. I had bad, altitude sickness. So I got to the highest base camp, which was maybe around 5,000, but I couldn't get to the summit. But, still, yes, a mountain. And I love sea as well, like
Okay.
ocean and sea. And so I think both of them are beautiful.
Okay. So last question. What is your favorite quotation which keeps you motivated all the time?
I teach innovation and creativity. And one of the things that I love, and I tell my students, why I love teaching that course, it's my favorite course, is it has changed my perspective on life. And one thing that I like a lot is, failure is a normal part of trying to be innovative, creative. If you're not willing to fail, you will never do anything new and different or novel. And so if it is about the fear of failure, then you know what? You will never be able to do anything new. So you have to dispel the fear of failure, and you will see that you'll be able to accomplish a lot.
That's very, very interesting because this particular quote actually also talks about your entrepreneurial mindset, which talks about in terms of creativity and innovation and failures and success. So it's a part of our life, and we have to embrace it the way life is embracing us. Thank you so much, Professor Sinha. It was lovely speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this conversation, Anita.
It's great to see you all here. Thank you for watching our work. If you have not subscribed to Inkpot Hub Media, then please hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel and support research celebrations in India.